Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? My name's Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. It's Poppin' Rick.
What's up?
This will be, because, the tight ends are great. You got to love the tight end position. And we'll probably talk about tight ends a little bit, the two or three of them that are really good in our rookie draft shows, but we do not rank tight ends. We didn't last year. This year there's some good guys, but this will be
this year's class is really good. Tight end class.
This will be the last ranking show that we do for the rookies. There will be one final readjustment show where we'll talk about all of the rookie rankings.
Post-draft?
No, pre-draft. Final pre-draft rookie ranking show that we'll do where we'll talk about all of our rankings and talk about changes we've made over the last 2-3 weeks. If there's guys that we've come to like more or not like more, and discuss just all the prospects heading into the draft. And then we'll talk about winners and losers after the draft and how that affects. I don't know if we do another set of rookie ranking shows pertaining to post-draft landing spots. But today, we are going to talk about the top 5 rookie running backs in this class. And I think there's like 3, maybe 4 that will end up being good in the NFL. And then the rest are probably just going to be, either a surprise player that ends up playing better or, just backups. So we'll talk about that. Before we do, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below any questions you may have. So I wanted to preface this. This is probably going to be the position that changes the most pre-draft to post-draft. I think the top 2 guys will probably remain the same because if you have elite talent, it doesn't matter. At this point, this is what I figured out. Kenneth Walker went to a team with 2 running backs and then ended up being ridiculously good. We thought Breece Hall was going to be stuck behind guys. He didn't end up being stuck behind anyone.
It took him 1 week.
It took him 1 week. So it's like, if you draft a guy relatively high in the NFL draft at the running back position, then chances are that person's going to take over the job. Now, I will say, draft capital / landing spot matter most for these guys. If a running back gets drafted in the first round by a football team, the running back position is not a valuable position to anybody.
Correct.
If you get drafted in the first round by a football team, regardless of who is on that team, there's a good chance that running back is going to get run. And so I think every single season, every single year there's been a running back taken in the first round, that running back usually ends up a top 12 to 15 running back in fantasy football that season.
The only one I can think of that didn't was Penny, and Penny was hurt.
It was Penny, Travis Etienne got hurt as well.
Clyde.
So Clyde, was he?
He was close though. He was top 20.
So but these guys usually end up having success. There's usually at least one. Unless the class doesn't have running backs. Like last year, I don't think was there a first? Was Breece in the first round or was he second? I can't remember.
Breece was top of the second, I think.
But anyway, so just capital and all that stuff matters for running backs. And I think, as the fantasy community, we like to talk about talented running backs and all of that stuff. And the position doesn't matter as much as it used to, and talent doesn't matter as much as it used to at this position. It just doesn't. And unfortunately, you can watch film and you can dissect and you can be like, oh, I think this guy's going to be good. I think this guy's not going to be good. It just depends on what team takes him, if they fall in love with him, and are they going to give him carries? It's easy.
Yeah.
Anybody in the NFL can become an NFL running back. If you are good enough to be in the NFL as a running back, you're good enough to be one of the top guys at this point. So
yeah, I'll say like of all the 3 shows we've done, I think landing spot and draft capital matter most
for this one,
probably for running backs. Yeah.
So sure. We're gonna give you our best as we can predict pre-draft rankings here, and try to do this quickly. All of our shows have been exponentially long, so we'll give the profiles and then talk about the player a little bit, and then send you on your merry way. But let's start off with the number 1 guy. Which this is pretty friggin' consensus, if you ask me.
I have not seen one list where he's not number one.
There are people that say, and he's not going to go higher than, because like I said, the running back position is becoming less valuable over time. But there are people who have said that, and not just crazies on Twitter, there are people who have said that Bijan Robinson, who is the number one ranked for both of us, is a more highly valued and better prospect than Saquon was coming out.
I don't agree with that.
Like that. So that is how high people think of him, though. That's kind of where you have to keep it. He's not going in the top 10. He's not going in the top 5.
Well,
oh dear God!
There's a rumor that the Eagles want him at 10.
That would be great.
Yeah, especially because Miles Sanders is gone. So,
but this is one of those talk about running backs. You want them between 5'10". If you get a 6-foot guy, they tend to run tall. So like you get issues there. There's not many running backs that end up being like 6'1", 6'2", like Derrick Henry, and running people over. It's not usually a mold that works. But 5'10", 5'11", 220, 215, 220 pounds is where you want to be.
It's the mold.
Bijan Robinson, 5'11", 215, so he's exactly where he needs to be. 40-yard dash was 4.46. So you're talking about a running back that is big, bulky, strong, and freaking fast. His speed score, 89th percentile. Burst score, 82nd percentile. He ranks number 5 out of all running backs in this class for athleticism score. And all time at the position of running back, he's 199. So, out of 666. So he is a athlete. But I think, what he can do really shows on film, because he is big, he is fast, he is powerful. He can, I believe he can pass catch. He's one of the most gifted athletes that you're going to see at the running back position. He makes cuts like jukes and athletic like actions.
Yeah.
His agile moves, it looks like he's like sub 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So the moves.
But he also runs guys over.
He also runs guys over. So he's ridiculous when it comes to his athleticism. He runs big, and he can also run with agility. And you line him up outside, he could be a split wide receiver if you want to do that. So he just does everything, and he does everything well. And I think when you look at, Bijan, it's like, this is one of those guys that if he gets drafted, he's kind of like Brees or Kenneth Walker, where I think they went in the second round last year. I could be wrong on that still, but
yeah, they did. They went early second.
So like he could go early second, and I would still draft him in the in the top 4 rounds of a redraft league, because I think he's going to be that good. So, and there's obviously negatives on him, but I think people, one of the negatives actually on this website that I'm reading from, his raw yardage production is not quite on par with others, given his quote generational talent. So this is the language that we're using for Bijan, generational talent.
Yep.
But he's a complete back. He's going to be a feature bell cow, like for a team that wants to do that, i.e. Philadelphia, who would be perfect. And he's probably going to be a first-round pick, I would guess.
I think he'll be a first-rounder as well.
Yeah. So he's number 1 for that reason. I think draft capital will push him in there, but I think he's a very good prospect. If you don't think he's, talent-wise, prospect-wise on the level of Saquon Barkley, he is the best thing we've had prospect-wise since Saquon Barkley. So he's ridiculously good. I love him.
Yeah. I think so. I would say Saquon to me is the best running back prospect of all time. So I wouldn't quite put him there with Barkley, but I think he's the best since. I 100% agree with that. Barkley ran like a 4.4 and was 233. Barkley's workout metric. Can I just tell you Saquon's workout metrics really quick?
Yeah.
96th percentile, 100th percentile, 98th percentile, 96th percentile.
Ridiculous.
He's had the best workout metrics of all time, and he had the best college numbers of all time, and he was drafted 2nd overall in the NFL draft. So yeah, that's I wouldn't say he's Saquon, but
yeah, I'm not saying that. But I know there are people who are saying that though.
I think he's better than Breece Hall as a prospect. He's better than Najee Harris as a prospect. He's better than Kenneth Walker as a prospect.
Yeah.
He's better than Josh Jacobs, Clyde, Jonathan Taylor. I don't know. You can go down the list of guys since Barkley. And even before, like McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette, I think Bijan is better than all those guys as prospects, other than Saquon. He's the best since.
Yeah.
He's got everything you want in a running back. He's fast, he's quick, he's strong, he's prototypical size. Statistically, what was that report? It wasn't as good as you'd want from a generational running back. He still had like 1,600 rushing yards. Mm-hmm. His first year in 2020 in the shortened season, he had 8 yards per carry. Just stupid numbers.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And looking at this scouting report, his only weaknesses, they gave him like a list of all these strengths. Mm-hmm. They only gave him 4 weaknesses, and 2 of them are basically saying that he tries to do too much sometimes instead of just taking the hole, which was the same problem with Saquon. That was like Saquon's biggest weakness, and still kind of in the NFL. You'll see sometimes he tries to like take it to the outside when he could just rush for 4 or 5 yards down the middle. So Bijan will probably do the same thing, but outside of that, perfect running back. He's probably going to be the 101, and not probably. He will be the 101 in every single rookie draft that doesn't have Superflex. And even Superflex leagues, I've seen him going number 1 because of how people are sure that he's going to be a top 5 fantasy running back right away.
It's crazy.
Yeah, especially if he goes to the Eagles, dude. Like, you're talking about him going in the first round in redraft if he goes to the Eagles.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've seen a running back be put in that conversation. And I certainly hope not, because I'd love to draft him in the second round.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he might. Saquon was what? I think 106, 107 when he was a rookie.
Yeah.
So he'll probably be late first, early second.
See, the big thing is that some people research, and then you end up with your buds who are drinking beers and partying and also drafting at the same time.
And then he goes first.
And he goes first. Yeah. Either goes first, or everyone's like, who's this guy?
Yeah, they don't know who he is, and he goes the 4th round.
So anyway, our number 2 guy consensus. You want Alvin Kamara, Rick? You want another Alvin Kamara? Because I like Jahmyr Gibbs as that. He's 5'9", 199, fits kind of that mold. He actually gets a player comp with C.J. Spiller. Remember that guy back in the day?
He was good for fantasy.
No, he's fantastic for fantasy. But Jahmyr Gibbs ran a 4.36 and had a 91st percentile speed score. So he is electric. He wins with his suddenness, so he can make people miss. He's not going to be power back. He's not that kind of player.
Not that.
He's very small. So, but he's very quick. Change of direction is really good. So he's going to be able to take advantage of that. He's going to be, he probably will. The NFL teams will probably try to make him a featured back. The issue for him is size, and so I don't know if he's going to be able to hold up with a full NFL workload.
Yeah, I don't think you should give him 250 carries.
Kind of reminds me of like Travis Etienne, where like last year, I've said this many times on this podcast, Etienne there were games where they gave him 20 carries, and at the end of the game, he looked like he didn't have it anymore. So he doesn't have that size to be that, but I think people they're comfortable with him being a guy that can be that. But I think the biggest thing for him is his pass catching ability. Like, I don't think we've seen, like, Bijan is complete and he's really good, but I don't think we've seen for a very long time a running back who can pass catch like this guy can. And if you get him in the NFL, he's probably going to be a 2nd round pick, is what my guess would be.
I would agree. He's probably early. He's one of those early 2nd rounders.
Like, whatever team he ends up on, they're going to throw him the ball.
Yep.
And if that's the case in PPR formats, you want to have a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs on your team. You don't really want to play around with that. So I look at Gibbs as the type of player that I would draft as the 2nd running back off the board in rookie drafts, specifically because he does provide that receiving upside. Like, if he comes into the pro game and the team that he's on gives him 10 targets a game, you automatically have a running back that's probably going to finish top 15 at least. So he's the type of player that is very unique from that aspect. In terms of his rushing, there's some aspects of it that need improvement. And, he, like I said, he's a little bit smaller of a back. So it's like, he's not like he's 200 pounds. So it's not like he's not like strong or big. Like a 5'9" dude, 199 pounds that's a thick dude.
Yeah.
So like, he's not small. I've seen these small, like petite running backs. He's not
180s,
that, but he's short.
Yeah.
He's very short. So, like that's an aspect that you're not going to be able to overcome. So that size might be hard for him to carry the workload, which is his biggest concern. But I think, 15, like you look at, I say Alvin Kamara because you look at Alvin Kamara, he's not a guy that carries the ball 20, 25 times a game. He carries it 12 times a game and then catches 8 passes. So it's like, that's where you're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs. That's the style of play that he's going to have in the NFL. I'm just curious about what team takes him and how high they do, because if he ends up like a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick, I still really like him, but I'm more concerned about where he is in terms of, specifically this upcoming season, but long term.
Yeah.
Does somebody want to give him that workload?
I think he's going to be a 2nd round pick, and I agree. I think if he falls there, it would hesitate for me, but I still would like the player.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of what you wanted Clyde to be coming out. Like, remember Clyde coming out was like the pure pass catching running back. He'll be a PPR darling. Yeah. And then the Chiefs didn't use him in the passing game for some reason. Mm-hmm. That's what Gibbs is. But Gibbs is better athletically than Clyde. Clyde was 5'7". He wasn't like that fast. He ran like a 4.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Gibbs is 5'9", 200 and runs a 4.36. So he's also elite athletically. Mm-hmm. The Alvin Kamara comparison you see a lot, and I think it's really true. He reminds me of Alvin Kamara. He might even be shiftier and faster than Alvin Kamara. He's almost like DeAndre Swift, but bigger, which is like it's I'm a big fan of Gibbs, especially for fantasy. I think he's gonna be the perfect PPR player. I was kind of comparing his receiving numbers to other past receiving running backs.
Yeah.
Coming out, and it kind of is very similar to other guys like McCaffrey, like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like the DeAndre Swifts. So he's got that elite passing ability. I think he can be like an Austin Eckler type in fantasy where, he might, or Kamara, where he doesn't really get the 200 plus carries, but he gets like 70, 80 receptions in the NFL with the touchdowns as well. So I'm really interested to see where he ends up landing. I think that will, I think he'll probably still be number 2 for me unless he really falls in the draft. But as long as he's still a 2nd round pick, I think he'll still be number 2. But it might hurt his cause depending on where he goes, or really help.
The running back position is just, like I said, it's such a wacky position because you can have guys like, the year that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was taken in the 1st round. I think in that draft, he was like the 3rd running back in the class.
Yeah, he was 4th, I think, for a lot, because that was Dobbins, Swift, and Taylor.
Yeah, and he ended up going as the 1st running back to Kansas City, and obviously that changed people's perspective of it. But, like, to me, anything can happen. Like, Gibbs could go number 1, or teams could just hate him. There could be something in the meeting room where they just don't like him, or whatever.
That's true.
And he could fall the 4th or 5th round. And he might be a freak talent, but they just didn't think he was worth that 1st round pick, and they might not see that. Now, this is the pro game. So, like, I could see Gibbs, like, Behan might go to he's probably going to go first. He's going to go to the Eagles. But there's a world where I see Jahmyr Gibbs going off the board first because of his pass catching ability, and people might want that as a part of their team. So it's like, I think he's going to be fine. I think, just watch his landing spot and his draft capital and where that goes. Because if you get in the 2nd round, landing spot definitely starts factoring in a little bit more than the draft capital aspect of it. So just keep an eye on that. But the next 3 guys that we're going to talk about
are all dart throws.
They're dart throws for the most
good
part.
Prospects, good prospects. Like, to me, they could all move around.
And there's a lot of other guys, like some guys. I'm just going to go through some guys that we do not have on this show that actually have upside. There's a running back from UAB that's ranked, I think, is the 5th running back on PFF. His name is Dwayne McBride, and he was ranked 14th and 3rd the last 2 years in the country at the running back position, but he plays for a crap school. So he's a guy that could end up going higher. Tank Bigsby is a guy that a lot of people probably heard of. Tajay Spears is a fantasy football Twitter darling. Sean Tucker, some people like on Twitter. Deuce Vaughn has been out there. So there's a guy, Zach Evans,
Roshan Johnson, I've seen as high as 3, and he's the backup running back for Bijan. It was like the year when Michael Carter and Javonte went out.
So it's just there's a lot of guys, and any one of these guys could get drafted in the second round where you have to start considering, hey, is this a good landing spot? Could this guy be better?
Yeah.
I remember the David Montgomery year. The Bears drafted him in the second round, and I don't think anybody thought he was going to be that particularly highly drafted. And and you had to change your mind on him a little bit because regardless of what you thought pre-draft, he was going to get run. So, all right, the next guys that we're going to talk about, I tried to make this as consensus as I could for Rick and I. But Devin Akane is 3. He's got some good upside. He's kind of similar in terms of the pass catching to Jahmyr Gibbs. Not as good, but he's, I think, the fastest running back in this class. Is that?
Yes,
yeah,
I think so.
The fastest 40 times. So he is 5'8", 188, much smaller. He's going to have probably, it depends on where he goes, but his role is going to be very specific. He kind of, not speed-wise, definitely not, but like the role that James White had in the NFL, I could see teams going with this guy and utilizing him as that. But he's among the fastest players in college football. He's terrific contact balance for a smaller back. And then he has no slippage in his cuts. He makes sharp and intermediate cuts. So, very good on the ground in terms of a smaller back, but he's going to be a guy that's a change of pace back, a third down back. Like, I don't see a huge role for him in the NFL. But because of his elite speed, there is something to work with there that could possibly lead to a larger NFL role, if that makes sense. He definitely needs to hit the gym. Like, he's small. So, like, he's a dude that's just, I feel like he's going to get hit and he's going to get hurt in 5 seconds, to be honest with you. But, if you can use him properly, he has home run speed and he has the ability to just, if you miss one tackle on this dude, he's gone. So, I think that teams can use that, and they will use that to their advantage. And, he could go anywhere from, second round to a team that's desperate for a running back to 5th round. Like, that's where, like, his range of outcomes are for the draft. And if that's if he goes in the 4th, 5th round, there's a good chance for me that he doesn't have a ceiling in the NFL in terms of running back. Like, I think he would probably fall into the 4th round of rookie drafts, maybe the 3rd. But I do think he's probably going to end up being a 2nd or 3rd round pick at the end of the day, because of the speed.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that for fantasy, that's why I think we both have him higher than some people, or I guess lower for some people who have him at 3. But I think a little higher than most people. I've seen a lot of lists where he's like in that 5 to 6 range for running backs. But yeah, his player comp was Chris Johnson, which, that gets me going because that's an OG fantasy superstar right there. But that speed, that breakaway speed is just something that I love to see, especially in running backs more than even any other position. Yeah. And he's got that pass catching ability as well, where I think for fantasy purposes and PPR, he could be an electric fantasy running back. And again, there's a lot of question marks after these first 2 guys in terms of landing spots and draft capital and all those things. But if he gets put in the right situation, he could be electric for fantasy and could be an RB1 for sure in PPR leagues. And I love his upside. I love that potential in him. So I think I had him 4. But he could be as high. I mean, I could end up moving him up to 3, depending on what happens.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about. I had this guy 5. Rick has him 3. Kendre Miller. I was already talking about Zach Charbonnet, and then I switched it the last second. So Kendre Miller, just to give you a little backstory, he's 20 years old, 5'11", 215.
He's got that. He's the same size as.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm trying to pull up the metrics. He's the same size as Bijan. Is that what you said?
Yep.
He plays for or played for TCU. So we got another guy coming from TCU.
I mean, they did make the national championship.
He has zero workout metrics to look at, but to me, he looks like a back that is, he probably would be considered, he has the build to be a workhorse running back in the NFL if somebody were to give him that. His burst out of his cuts are uncommon for a bigger back. He's a sneaky 210 plus pound running back. And tacklers kind of just bounce off him sometimes, and then he has flexibility in his lower half, so he can sink when he needs to. So he's really, really good in terms of those aspects, but he does have some issues. So speed-wise, there's a problem. He runs out of gas in open field, so like he's not gonna hit a home run. And he's not somebody that is super, like, he's athletic, obviously. He's an NFL running back.
His athletic score, not on player profile, but NFL.com has him ranked 6th among running backs.
Yeah. So he's not,
which is good, but not like top of the can.
Yeah, he's not super athletic in terms of that. Nothing to write home about, but relatively, high cut for a running back. He likes to run high, which is not typically good. And he's not like, tacklers will bounce off him, but he's not looking to create that broken tackle. So he doesn't run like a power running back. He runs more like in a agile creator instead. So there's he's kind of a weird little prospect, but I was going to say he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a David Montgomery coming out, where, Monty was actually ranked way higher, but this could be a guy that like no one hears about ever in their entire life besides this podcast right now. And then you'll see him in the XFL in 3 years and you'll be like, oh, wow, I remember Kendra Miller from that podcast I listened to. Or he could get drafted in the second round and everyone's like, oh God, now we got to readjust the rankings. And that's Kendra Miller. So, he does have the size, like I said, to be a bell cow back. He's flexible. There's some things that he needs to work on and improve upon. But I think if he gets drafted by a team that wants to utilize him and he gets drafted high and it's a good landing spot, like, this projection has him in the 3rd round. So, he's young. You can develop him. Maybe in the good spot, he can be a good running back. But, there's definitely some question marks there.
Yeah, I like him a little bit more, I think, than others. There is nothing like super special about him, but he's got the prototypical size. He was dominant in college. I think that was kind of something that opened my eyes. He was on that TCU team that made the national championship. I think they were undefeated, and he was a big reason why. He had 7 yards per carry his first 2 years of college, and then last year he was at 6.7. I think he could be a workhorse back in the NFL because he's able to do everything really well. He's a great pure runner, or a really good pure runner. He's a good enough pass catcher. So he has the ability to do kind of everything.
Yeah.
He's still very young. He's only 20 years old when he'll be 21 as a rookie.
Yeah.
So he's very young, which I like. So he's got a lot, which for running back is very nice. He doesn't have a lot of like tread on his tires, I guess. So if you draft him, he's probably going to be good for like 6 or 7 years, which you can't say for all running backs. So there's things I like about him, but there are question marks for sure. And again, with him, just like a lot of these other guys past Gibbs and Robinson, it's going to really depend on capital and landing spot. But I think he has, of all these guys, he's got he might not have anything that's elite traits, but he's very well-rounded, and I think he could be an actual workhorse for an NFL team depending on where he goes.
Another guy, kind of similar build, is Zach Charbonnet, and he's our 5th and final guy that we'll talk about on this show. And like I said, some of these other guys that I mentioned 5 minutes ago could also be guys that are discussed in that conversation as well. But Charbonnet I think he was a favorite until the combine. He was a guy that was challenging Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of the number 2 guy in the class, and I think a lot of people wanted Charbonnet to be that guy because he has the build. He's 6 foot tall, 215. Like, he has that size of being a workhorse back in the NFL. The issue is his speed really hurt him at the combine. Now, he is still 70 percentile, but I think a lot of people thought he was going to run a 4.4, and he ended up running a 4.53. He has a 72nd percentile speed score, 78th percentile burst score, and he's not as strong as you would think for a bigger back. He's 34th percentile in his bench press reps at the combine. So there was some disappointing facets there, but he knows how to break tackles. So one of the things I don't like to see is if you're considered a power back and you don't have a high bench press total, that doesn't make me feel good. You know what I mean? He has size that sneaks up on you. So, he could get up to 220 pounds easily, soft hands out of the backfield. So he can pass catch. I believe he was a 14.5% college target share, which is 93rd percentile. That's what you want to see. So he's a pass catcher. He's one of those guys that, once again, similar to, Kendre Miller, like, the athleticism is not necessarily as, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as much there as it is for Jahmyr Gibbs and Behan. So, he doesn't have massive athleticism. He's not going to run away from you. So he's not going to separate. We see that with the 4.5 speed. And then he's got a lot of tread on his tires. He's been in the league in college football for 4 years now.
Yeah.
And just to give you some of his carry totals, 194 in 2022, 204 in 2021. And then he had 19 in 2020.
That was the COVID year.
Yeah, that was the COVID year. But then he also played, I believe, in 2019. So this says he had just a total of 640 career touches. He does need to improve as a route runner. So there's that. But I think there's enough here to develop into a good running back.
Yes, I agree.
Is another guy that could go in the second round or third round or fall all the way to the fifth round and people just forget about him. So
Isaiah Spiller.
Yeah. So, it could go either way with Charbonnet right now. PFF has him as their third best running back. Like I said, he was challenging Gibbs for a little while there, but after Behan and Gibbs, it's just kind of like, whoever gets drafted first, that's where it's going to change for us.
Yeah. And it's not like, was it last year where it was Hall and Walker and then we were just like, with everybody else? Yeah. I think it's Gibbs and Robinson are elite prospects, and then everybody else is like, they're good, but it's just none of them stand out, and it's going to depend on landing spot and draft capital. But I think Charbonnet, he's a good prospect. And I think I have him at 5, but he could easily be number 3 still, depending on where he goes in capital. Yeah. The 4.53 just really scared me. Again, which I do like speed in running backs, and it wasn't quite up to par. And if you don't have speed, that's fine. But you have to be kind of the bulldozer, which he is and he isn't. He is a little bit, but he definitely has everything there. He's got the prototypical size. He was elite in college. Yeah. And the 4.53 isn't like awful. It's not, it's still 70th percentile. His speed and burst scores are still pretty good. So he still has something there. I think he can also be a workhorse in the NFL. I was impressed with his pass catching ability. I know you said his route running could use work, but 37 receptions is really good in the college level. So he can definitely pass catch. So I do like the prospect, and I think if he's a second-round pick and he gets in a good landing spot,
he should be fine.
I would definitely be willing to take him in the late first round of rookie drafts.
And in 2 months, we're going to be talking about Tank Bigsby. In the early second round to Atlanta.
Yep.
He'll be like, what? So, these are the guys I think Rick and I both look at as they're the highest percentage chance of going in the first 3 rounds, and they have the most upside of those players. Now, like I said, things can change. There's a lot of running backs in this class that people really like that could completely change, after the second guy, because I would say Behan and Jahmyr Gibbs are like consensus for everybody. After that, it's just like it's just a crap show. So any more thoughts on these guys?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, there you go. Behan, Jahmyr Gibbs, Devin Akane, Zach Charbonnet, Kendre Miller. Rick's is Behan, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kendre Miller. Devin Akane, and Zach Charbonnet. And then an honorable mention, Sean Tucker. Sean Tucker. Next week, we're going to talk about coaches, do a rookie mock. We'll see you then.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.